Please begin. Thank you, Ashton. Thank you. Good afternoon, folks. I'm Yolanda Bejarano, Chairwoman of the Arizona Democratic Party, and I want to start by thanking Senator Birch and Representative Stahl Hamilton for joining me today. Arizona voters overwhelmingly support access to safe and legal abortions, and Senator Birch and Representative Stahl Hamilton understand what's at stake this November. 51 years ago, on January 22nd, 1973, the Supreme Court issued a landmark decision in Roe versus Wade, protecting a woman's constitutional right to choose. The case reaffirmed basic principles of equality, reinforced the fundamental right to privacy, and enabled women to make deeply personal decisions free from political interference. But because of Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans' extreme anti-abortion agenda, these rights have been stripped away. Since Trump's Supreme Court justices provided the deciding votes to overturn Roe, we've seen countless horrifying stories of women across the country denied life-saving care and doctors threatened with prosecution for doing their jobs. This should not be happening in America, but it is because of Donald Trump and extreme MAGA Republicans, both in DC and in our state legislature. We all know that Trump and MAGA Republicans see Arizona as a testing ground for extremism, and the issue of abortion is a prime example. Arizonans are resoundingly pro-choice. There's no question that we believe that the decision of when to start or grow a family should be made without political interference. So why is the state Supreme Court hearing oral arguments for an abortion ban that originated before we were even a state? Because of Republican extremism. Here are the stats about the 1864 abortion ban that put things into perspective. Women were not even allowed to own credit cards until 1974. The first woman wasn't even elected to Congress until 1916. This ban existed in a time where it would be laughable to have a press call with two women state legislators, because in 1864, women weren't in elected positions. Yet Arizona Republicans are pushing for this extreme and archaic abortion ban in court. As the state Supreme Court begins debating on the 1864 law, Arizona Republican Senate President Warren Peterson and House Majority Leader Ben Toma have filed their own amicus brief, arguing the legislature wants to maintain the archaic ban. We know where the AZ GOP lies on the issue of abortion, right in line with Donald Trump, who just last week bragged that he was the one who got rid of Roe v. Wade, allowing Republican extremists across the country to pass draconian abortion bans that are hurting women and threatening doctors across the country. While Republicans are running on their anti-freedom agenda of taking away rights and dictating women's private healthcare decisions, Democrats from state legislatures to the Oval Office are committed to making sure people have more rights, not fewer. Arizona is the next abortion battleground, from enshrining abortion rights in our state constitution via ballot initiative and flipping our legislature. In 2022, we elected pro-choice Democrats Governor Katie Hobbs and Attorney General Chris Mays, who have done tremendous work in protecting abortion access and medication. But our work is not done. We are 2 seats away in each chamber from flipping the legislature, where we can usher in an era where the Arizona legislature is a champion for reproductive health care. That's what's at stake and will be on the ballot this November, Arizonans' reproductive rights. The Arizona Democratic Party is committed to making sure that every single voter knows these stakes and turns out to vote. Thank you, and now I'll pass it over to Senator Birch.
Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you for bringing us all here together today. And I'm very grateful for the work that the party is doing. I really believe that it's going to make the difference in November, especially with the ballot initiative and bringing people to the table to come and have something to care about, something to vote for. And I know how much that's going to impact our down ballot races, and so thank you for that. I'm gonna have to ask everyone to be a little patient with me. I have COVID and I'm right in the middle of it, so I'm a little sick, but I'm gonna get through it. I do want to thank Rep. Sol Hamilton also, though it's just an honor to work alongside you in the legislature and to continue to fight to restore reproductive freedom in Arizona. So thank you so much for being here today. Again, my name is Eva Birch. I am the minority whip in the Arizona Senate, and I'm also a nurse practitioner. I've worked in reproductive health care for several years, and I'm just honored to be with fellow Democratic women and Arizonans in general who are committed to fighting for abortion rights in Arizona. Right now in Arizona, there is a 15-week abortion ban that's on the books. That is thanks to a law that was passed and signed by the Arizona GOP, which is more restrictive than what there was only a few years ago. But just since I was elected to the Senate, there have been multiple attempts to advance a very anti-abortion agenda. We had bills that would codify fetal personhood into law. We had one bill that would charge doctors with manslaughter for performing abortions. But when I was running for this seat, it became very personal to me. My husband and I had been trying to get pregnant for some time, had been tracking my cycles and doing everything that people do when they're trying to get pregnant. And we did become pregnant. We were very excited about it. We had chosen a name and we had started to tell our families about it. But one ultrasound after another, we could tell that my pregnancy wasn't going well, until my final ultrasound, where the doctor told me that my pregnancy was not going to progress and that I was going to have a miscarriage. Now, as a nurse practitioner, I knew that pregnancy at any stage carries more risks than an abortion. And knowing that my pregnancy was going to end, we made the decision to terminate the pregnancy. Extremely difficult decision for us. This was a pregnancy that we wanted and that we had been trying for. And the day before my scheduled abortion, I started to miscarry, or I started to think that I was miscarrying. We went to the emergency room and that miscarriage stalled, and the ultrasound showed that I was still pregnant. And although it appeared that there was no more cardiac activity, they would not give me a procedure there in the ER. The options that I was offered was to go home and wait and see if my miscarriage would progress, or to take medicine, and that would make me start bleeding again. And once I had bled enough, they would give me a procedure. Neither of those were options that I was comfortable with. And so I luckily already had an abortion scheduled for the next day and was able to go and have that procedure. And 2 weeks later, the Roe decision happened and abortion access in Arizona came to a halt, and I would not have been able to get that procedure. And while I felt incredibly lucky that I was able to get the care that I needed, it became a real pain point for me, and something that I knew would be really important in my campaign and in my work as a senator, to make sure that people in Arizona are not faced with impossible decisions like I was. So it really hasn't ever been more critical in Arizona and for families across the country, really. And I know that in Arizona, we are very close to being able to restore the right to choose in a much more meaningful way. Both in the Arizona House and Senate, we have just 1 seat deficits, and flipping just 2 seats in either chamber would really fundamentally change the outlook for millions of Arizonans for their reproductive rights and freedoms. And I'm very committed to protecting abortion access. And I know that Rep. Sol Hamilton, and I agree that the state legislature is really the last line of defense in that fight to defend reproductive freedom. And we're hoping to be able to continue to build momentum in this fight and remind voters exactly what's at stake in the upcoming elections, and do everything we can to make sure the turnout is there, and be supportive in any way that we can. And I think I can hand it back. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time today.
Thank you, Senator Birch, for sharing your story. And now I'll hand it over to Representative Sol Hamilton.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you, Senator, for sharing your deeply personal and heartbreaking story, and something that many people in our state have to step through and live through. And at a time when this just cuts to our core, it is ever more important that, yes, we not only are the line of defense, but that we continue to push and work towards a state that will allow all people to have reproductive health care and reproductive rights and justice. I am reaching back and remembering to the weeks leading up to the Supreme Court decision when I knew the challenge before us. And interestingly enough, at that time, I was part of a US delegation that did a reproductive rights trip and tour in Mexico, where their legislature, or their state, their not only state, but their federal government, national government, is working to increase access to abortion care and coming alongside of their people with a very compassionate response. And on the heels of that trip, I left Mexico and flew straight into Long Beach, California, to attend my daughter's volleyball tournament. And I can remember just watching her play, and there was just in that moment for me a huge disconnect of having just had this rich, incredible experience touring a country who was starting to enact more progressive legislation, and looking at the sea of people in this convention center, thousands of young women who were of childbearing age, but also with all of the families, and just thinking, they have no clue what's headed our way and how quickly futures will be changed when Roe falls. And already we know, since that time, we've heard the stories, and we've had some dark days here in Arizona fighting for abortion rights. And with the 1864 territorial ban standing as one of the darkest. I can remember Governor Ducey's excitement as Roe fell, signing a bill banning abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy. And there was nothing arbitrary about that date, because we know at 16 weeks is where a lot of the genetic testing happens for pregnancy. And so, it was by no accident that 15 weeks is a week that was chosen. And, having that banned and criminalizing our medical care professionals, there's nothing about reproductive health care that should lead to criminalization. And yet, if the majority in Arizona's legislature has its way, that's exactly what will happen, and we will face even darker days in Arizona. But Democrats, we are a shining light in these dark days in this state. We ushered in abortion champions in 2022, replacing Doug Ducey with Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs and Democratic Attorney General Chris Mays, who have used every tool at their disposal to ensure that we never go back. And this session, I am proud to join Governor Hobbs in supporting the Arizona Right to Contraception Act, the Birth Control Access Bill that former Representative Athena Solomon planned to sponsor this 2024 session before she left the legislature to join the Reproductive Freedom for All group. And we must not only stop abortion bans, but this bill will help us defend access to contraception. Arizona is an abortion battleground state this November. We will have the opportunity to create a trifecta in this state, Democratic majorities in both the Senate and the House and in the governor's tower, who will enshrine abortion rights in our state constitution. We have this opportunity now, and to expand access to reproductive health care and send reproductive rights champion Democrats back into office all across the ballot. Both the Arizona House and Senate have a 1-seat deficit in each chamber, and flipping just 2 seats in the House and Senate could fundamentally change Arizona's abortion access. You know, across the country, we have seen this issue. We have seen that abortion rights are a winning issue. In states, we didn't think that would even be possible. But the people have spoken up and they have said, this is our right and we want to keep it. And we've seen here in Arizona that abortion extremism is what stopped the red wave in 2022. Democrats were supposed to lose ground in redistricting, and we didn't lose a single seat. And I am confident that as Arizona Republicans lean into abortion extremism, a reproductive rights champion majority is what is going to flip our state legislature. And I am excited to help make that happen. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Thank you, Chairwoman, for your leadership. Thank you, Senator, for all that you were doing and what you will continue to do as we continue to push for abortion rights and step through this fight.
Thank you, Representative Stahl Hamilton, and thank you, Senator Birch, for your work in the legislature and for joining us today. So I'm now going to open it up to the floor for questions. Please use the raise hand function to ask a question. And if you could, just please limit it to one question in the interest of time. Ashton or Victoria will call on you. And when called on, please unmute yourself and state your name and outlet. And once your question has concluded, just go back on mute. Any questions? All right, I see a hand.
Righty, Stacey, you should be able to jump in. Let me know.
Yeah, good morning. Well, sort of morning. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. I'm Stacey Barchinger with the Arizona Republic. Thank you for doing this availability today. I wondered if, you know, speaking about the November elections as it relates to the abortion ballot measure that we expect will be on the ballot, the legislative races, have you all considered how having at least what we know now, the top of the ticket is going to be the presidential race, presumably 2 people who are not super popular even within their own parties. How do you think that will affect turnout or impact races down the ballot? And what sort of consideration are you giving to that possibility?
Chairwoman, do you want to answer that first?
Sure. I mean, you know, I think this issue is such an important issue. It is mobilizing people. It's going to mobilize people to the polls, just like Representative Stahl Hamilton just said. You know, across the country, we saw when abortion was on the ballot, Democrats turned out. We saw that in Ohio. We saw that in Kansas. We saw that in Virginia, where Governor Glenn Youngkin was pushing a 15-week abortion ban, and he lost his majority. So, you know, I think this issue is going to be one that brings people out. You know, the reality is that women do not want to be told what to do, what they can do with their bodies. And the decision to start or grow a family should be made without political interference. On the issue of, you know, you're saying the unpopular top of the ticket. I mean, at the top of the ticket, we've got President Biden, who has also been pushing this issue. He fundamentally believes in a woman's right to choose, a woman's right to an abortion. And, you know, we are, I think, candidates, our Democratic candidates are on the right side of this issue. Again, they believe that women should not be told what to do with their bodies. And this is going to be a big win for Democrats in November.
Or Representative Stahl Hamilton or Senator Birch, anything to add?
Yeah, I could probably just add that when we talk about driving forces to the ballot box, even if we do have 2 candidates who are not tremendously popular in the presidential race, I think that what is even more unpopular is the notion of banning abortion in Arizona. And I think that that is going to be a really high driving force behind the turnout in this coming election. We're counting on that. And I think that people are becoming more aware of how impactful local government is to the decisions that are made that impact us on a community level here in Arizona. And I think that we're counting on that as well.
I think that this is an issue that crosses any kind of partisan divide. And I think we are seeing that quietly, folks whose party may not embrace, the Republican Party may not embrace this in their candidates. We are seeing people who are able to express their voice and their vote differently than where their party may stand. And, you know, we want to talk about wedge issues, but I think this is incredibly important. People are across the board are worried about losing their individual rights and their freedoms. And this absolutely is at the top of the list.
Thank you. Joe, I saw in the chat that you had a question. Did you want to come off mute and ask?
Hi, yeah, thank you. Joe Duhanik with Courthouse News. I know that one of the many issues that has come up recently in this has been physicians curtailing their practices out of fear of prosecution. I know especially with the 2021 reason ban, that was becoming a bigger problem. I guess my question is that still happening on a wide scale as far as y'all know? I know the Ninth Circuit revived a challenge to that law. I don't know if that has given physicians more security or more confidence in providing these procedures, or if it's still kind of operating under fear, if that makes sense.
Senator Go, you've got the statistics for this one.
Well, as someone who works in the reproductive health care space as a medical provider, I think that I will say that we have a lot of really passionate advocates for reproductive health care in our medical community. But what we also know is that when the Roe decision happened, abortion access was suspended largely in Arizona. And as it continues to be litigated, the risk for that happening again, or something along those lines happening again, is quite high. I think that enshrining these rights in our Constitution is really what can make the difference, to give that security to our providers, to give that security to individuals who are trying to become pregnant. It's very difficult when I have patients asking me, is this a good time for me to be trying to expand my family right now? Is it safe in Arizona? And I want to be able to tell them, yes, of course, that whatever the course of their pregnancy might take, that they can be confident that they're going to be able to receive the care that they need, free from government interference. So I think that while the potential of that fear impacting care still exists, that we have real opportunity to mitigate that and to make sure that does not continue to be a problem in Arizona. It has been in the past. It has the potential to be in the future. And it really is going to be up to the voters, up to the people of Arizona, to make sure that this is a safe place for pregnant people in Arizona.
Well, and we also know, to piggyback on that, we know that this has had a chilling effect for residencies in the OBGYN field. We know that young people are looking at state laws and making decisions on what colleges and universities they will attend based upon these laws. And like I said, my daughter is a volleyball player and she's an elite athlete, and you better believe she's looking at state laws when she is looking at which schools are reaching out and trying to recruit her to go play for their college. So absolutely, this criminalization and of medical professionals and limiting access to reproductive health care absolutely will have an effect and change our it'll change how we are and how we function and the decisions we make in ways that I don't think we could have anticipated.
Yeah, and to that point, in the states where abortion access has really been threatened or dramatically limited, the rate of people seeking residency has dropped by about 10%.
Yes.
And so that impacts not only the number of available providers, but the quality of those providers as well. And Arizona is not unique in that we have healthcare provider shortages already. So making decisions that would increase that disparity is really not in the best interest of the people of Arizona, and it's not in line with what the people of Arizona want broadly.
Thank you both so much for that. I want to jump to the next question. Cameron? Oh, go ahead and unmute yourself, Cameron. Sorry about that.
You're good. No worries. And I apologize if this was answered. I had to step away for a minute. But I have a question about the Right to Contraception Act. It was announced last summer by the governor and Representative Solomon, but Representative Solomon has resigned, and I haven't seen any bills relating to the aspects of contraceptive rights that they had talked about be introduced. And so I was just wondering if that's still a priority, if someone else has taken up that mantle, or what's going on with that.
It is still a priority. We are fine tuning the language. Just yesterday, we had 2 versions, and the stakeholders reviewed both versions. And I think we've got our bill. We've got our bill language. It will go into the hopper soon. You know, once we get the interest set, we'll get signatures, and then it'll go into the hopper, be assigned a bill number. So it is absolutely happening, and there will be a mirror version in the Senate.
Okay, and sorry, can I ask a quick follow-up on that? Just going along with that, can you say whether or not that there is any bipartisan support for this? Is this something that, you know, both parties are working on, or is this largely a Democratic initiative?
It seems right now, the Democrats are the ones working on it. It will be interesting to see if we get bipartisan support, since the governor worked that into her State of the State address. Either that can be something that, well, anyway, we'll just have to see if that has an effect. Certainly once I have an interest set in hand, you better believe I'm going to ask as many members as I can to sign off on that bill.
Awesome, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then Lily, the next question. And we're going to try to limit this to 5 questions. Joe, I see you in the chat.
Hello, thank you. So if Arizona ends up in a scenario where the Arizona Supreme Court reinstates the 1864 ban and the ballot initiative fails, what is the plan from Arizona Democrats to reinstate abortion access in the state?
Your question was if the Supreme Court reinstates the 1864 ban and the abortion initiative does not get on the ballot. Is that what you asked? Yeah. So what is the plan? I mean, really, it would go down. It would go. Again, this is a mobilizing issue for people. If the Supreme Court reinstates this draconian 1864 ban where there's no exception for rape or incest. I mean, it's just like so evil,
Right.
awful. Really, it's up to the voters. Like, who are we going to elect to represent us? Do we like? I don't think Arizonans, and we proved that in 2022. Arizonans do not want to go back to this. Arizonans do not want our freedoms to be taken away. So the plan is more organizing, more mobilizing, making sure folks understand the contrast between Democrats and Republicans. And then we just really just go from there and elect Democrats.
Thank you. Is there any final questions? The final question will be Joe's follow-up. Just want to wait one more second. Hey, Joe, go ahead. Your final question.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Yeah, so speaking of the ballot initiative, I'm not sure exactly what details are finalized yet, but do you have an idea of kind of the extent of how many weeks into pregnancy abortions will be legal. I know based on what Representative Saul Hamilton said, 15 weeks is kind of too short in your opinion. Is there a sweet spot that you might get more bipartisan support from more moderate Democrats if it's, 20 versus 18 or something like that? Do you have that finalized?
Are you asking about the ballot initiative directly?
Yeah.
Okay. I will let any of the representatives, or if the chairwoman wants to jump in here, but just to flag that none of these people are directly working on the ballot initiative. There are state representatives and the chairwoman of the party. So I just want to, your question might be best directed towards someone that actually wrote the ballot.
Yeah, okay, I appreciate it. I just didn't know if that was solidified anywhere, but no, I understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. Is there any other final questions? Wonderful. Well, we're so grateful that you all attended today. Thank you so much. There was a couple folks that requested the video. If you would like the video of this, you're more than welcome to email myself or Victoria. And thank you so much for attending.